Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi, this being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The 100. A lot of interesting things went down, so let's kind of break it down. Obviously, we're picking up where the season premiere left off, with everyone going a little crazy. Obviously, it starts off with Amaya, but it's like, basically, with everything that's going on, the plants are basically releasing a toxin that's making everyone go crazy, so everyone's kind of locking themselves up. And it leads to almost like this therapeutic session, almost in a certain regard, is kind of how Bellamy kind of put it when it comes to the whole Clarke and Murphy thing, because Murphy is still pointing out, like, oh yeah, fact is I'm trapped in here with the Commander Death, and saying, like, oh, like, commenting on the fact is obviously all the mistakes that Clarke has made, and for her, she finally can't take it anymore, because it's like the whole thing of like she's kind of having to like suck it up, because even she admits she messed up a lot, and it's like oh, you did this and that, you betrayed your friends, because every time she's always betrayed her friends for someone else. In the most recent case, it was like Dioza and her mom. She was kind of betraying them for, and then there's also like obviously Lexa. It's like it's always kind of a thing for you, and she's like, fine, you win. Are you happy now? Yes. I messed up a lot. Anytime I'm in charge, people die. And that's the whole situation of, heavy is the crown, that, the person leads, and like, who has to wear it. And Clarke has had to wear that crown for a very, very long time, and it's like it's cost her a lot. And it's just, for her, she had already lost so much, and Maddie was so important to her that she didn't want things to turn out the way they did. She wanted a way where everything could be okay, but for her top priority has been for so long now Maddie, and it was continued to be Maddie. So, but for her, it's like, if I could go back in time, I'd change everything, but I can't. So that's what you want to hear? I'm sorry. You want me to be the bad guy? Fine. I'll be the bad guy in this situation. So does that make you happy? He's like, it's a start, It's like Murphy being Murphy, I guess. But when it comes down to it, everyone else is starting to kind of lose their mind more and more. And it's kind of interesting, because I guess we find out a little bit more about the toxin to a certain extent. I guess it's not just like it drives you crazy, because Miller and Jackson had the same like delusion of like, oh, because Miller's like, oh, there's a bug crawling in me, but it wasn't. But Jackson was having the same thing, so it's like, what is that? It seems like it plays into, it uses your own, I guess, fears and insecurities kind of against you. Like, because it works on different people in certain manners. Like, in a sense of Echo was basically haunted by the mistakes that she made, all the betrayal that she had done, and it being like, oh, you have no allegiances to no one, you're the spy. And it's just like, even hearing Amaya say that, and it's like, was that even the real her? Which I'm assuming maybe it was, but hearing all of that, it's like, because it's, Echo's always been afraid that no one will ever look at her as just herself, that she will always be looked at as traitor, of just like, oh yeah, do this, the loyal soldier always following orders no matter how messed up the orders are. In Bellamy's case, it's like, oh, trying to save everyone. Can't you see that's what I'm trying to do? Like, for him, of like, doing whatever it takes, removing any obstacle if it means saving and protecting people. Almost kind of like, I guess you can make an argument to like almost a hero complex to a certain extent. It's kind of fueling his situation, trying to do what's best for others, and I guess in a sense, much like Clarke, trying to make up for a lot of stuff that he's done in the past, because no one in this situation is innocent. Everyone has made plenty of mistakes over the course of this series, so, but that's where I kind of chalk things up, at least in Bellamy's case. The fact is, he was trying to kill Murphy, because it's like, all the fact of the matter is, even going after Clarke, because it's like, oh, it's like, it's more like the situation you put me in, I guess, is kind of like, you and Murphy, you're kind of a danger and stuff like that. So I don't know. That's where I chalk that up. Amaya, I guess her situation could be like how her complicated relationship with Murphy, just because it's just like maybe her aggravation towards the way he acts sometimes, the things that he does, like rather than kind of handling things the way he should, he kind of jokes and is very sarcastic, and he kind of once again takes the asshole route. Then maybe that's just where her frustration just turned into murderous intent, and maybe it's just because it might also stem from the fact is obviously Murphy is a sore spot for her, because in the sense of like, they had their complicated relationship where things they broke up because of just how he handled things, so that's where my mindset is on it. But obviously, like, Clarke, it's her situation. Well, kind of going into Miller and Jackson's situation. Miller's case, maybe that was just it tapping into some fear of his. Well, because he had talked about, I don't want to die just like so-and-so. So it's like, I think that was kind of like the conversation. I think it was because of those worms back on Earth from like last season. Maybe that's kind of what he was alluding to. He made it a specific example, so it was tapping into that fear. And Jackson, obviously, it's like, oh, I'm seeing what Miller. It's like, oh, I'm seeing what Miller's seeing because I care about him. I want to protect him. I'm afraid of losing him. It's that type of thing. That's why their delusions ended up being the same. His delusion is like, no matter what Miller said, he would have seen it too, because it meant like, oh, I got to save him from this whole situation. That's why he was literally cutting into his arm with a knife trying to get the bug out. So even though there was none. And in Clarke's case, it's her mistakes of, something she thinks about herself of like, oh, I'm this poison to everyone. Like, obviously she has like, it's over the comms, it's her mom saying it to her, being like, oh, you're this poison that's, you kill people. The fact is, even the people you don't kill end up dying because they died trying to protect you. And it's like, everyone would be better off without you. Even Maddie, it's like, don't you love her? Maybe you don't really love her. It's like, I do. Then do this for her sake. There are no good guys, and I told you before that there was no good guys or bad guys, but I was just saying that to make you feel better. The fact is, there are good guys, Clarke. You're just not one of them. Like I said, it's just a lot of stuff that she already felt. We already kind of saw that with the conversation she had with Murphy of like where she sits with all this. Once again, just like everything that she's been through, and she feels like she does more harm than good. That's why I think she's kind of been taking a lot of it, the like distrust from a lot of people, is because she's like, I deserve it, So, well, it was interesting though. It seems like Murphy was not affected. I'm wondering why. Maybe Amari stabbing him ended up. Well, it didn't do it for Bellamy, so it's like, what made his situation different? Maybe it's because something had already gotten in his system beforehand. It seemed like he was going a little crazy by the time he got the gun in it. I'm like, oh, he must have went crazy. It's like, no, he wasn't. He was apparently still saying, he's like, okay, everyone else is kind of going crazy. So it's kind of interesting that the one person not affected by all of this, because even Murphy was like, yeah, it feels good to pull the trigger on this situation, on pulling on, Clarke, but convincing her to put the knife down and stuff like that, because it's like I said, he can be an asshole most times, but when the time comes, Murphy does kind of come through, So he's just so damn complicated. So obviously this all ties in with, I was wondering if that was like a real thing that was actually happening, or whether that was just a delusion or whatever of like, oh, the ship actually getting taken. I was like, no, it actually was taken. And it turns out it's by whoever was living on this planet. So we got a little look about 236 years ago here on Alpha. Interestingly enough, there's a girl, Josephine. Interestingly enough, her dad is the actor who played Robin Hood in Once Upon a Time. I was like, hey, that's cool. But that was kind of interesting, because that was basically them 21 days on the planet. Obviously, Allegiance 3. So it's kind of interesting, but obviously the same thing that's affecting everyone present day, it's affecting them. This was the first instance of it affecting the people in the past. In particular, it affected Josephine's dad, to the point he literally ran around killing everyone. He's basically saying that basically the sanctum is his. I guess it's kind of like his fear was that basically this discovery that was supposed to be his was going to be taken away, and so it fed into that fear or this delusion that everyone was there to take it away. He even struck his daughter. Now, whether she outright was dead is hard to say, because it seemed like she was still alive. Like, she probably took like some head damage or something, but I mean, maybe it did ultimately kill her, but it did seem like she was alive for a while. He definitely ended up killing his wife along with a whole bunch of other people. Now, I'm gonna circle back to that in a little bit, but obviously, like, the people who attack the ship, and I love that, everyone gets locked up, and Raven wakes up Dioza, because it's like, well, Dioza's kind of like the only person, that can handle this type of situation, and Dioza dispatches in that situation. Once again, it's like, even pregnant, you should not underestimate her, because she ended up killing 2 of the people. They've made a point of looking at, like, Octavia's hand and seeing like, oh, she has red blood. It's like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? I was like, it didn't click in my head, because it didn't even cross my mind, because later on it's like, they're night bloods. It's like, never even crossed my mind to think that they potentially could be night bloods. Well, it kind of makes sense, because they set up like a radiation field that only a night blood could get through. That's why Clarke was able to get the shawl and turn off the field, was because she was a night blood and radiation didn't affect her like that. So that's still interesting. So the clues were already there. It just weren't necessarily pieced together. I guess that's why they're trying to remember like the people like who kind of were kind of the birthplace of this, because it's interesting, because like Josephine and that dude, I'm blinking on his name already, but the dude she was kind of potentially having feelings for, there was a whole conversation. She was like, oh, you want to kind of basically start the population and stuff like that, but he's like, that's why the embryos are there. So I guess like they lost a lot of people and they kind of compensated it for it by using the embryos to kind of replenish what they lost and maybe build upon it. Either way, regardless, we had the whole situation of them being on the ship and everything, and it leads to a lot of complicated stuff because obviously everyone gets locked up, and you have Octavia being like, no, what we're going to do is we're going to get out of here. You're going to follow my lead. But a lot of people are reluctant to follow Octavia's lead, and she's obviously getting pissed. It led to an interesting conversation between her and Abby, where it's basically like Octavia kind of pointing out the fact is that it was all Abby's idea, yet she's the one that's kind of getting, that Octavia herself is the one that's getting the hate. Like, basically, it's like, all those people want to put their sins on me. They made the choice to go through with everything too. Like, this isn't just my sin to bear, it's theirs. Like, but this the whole thing of like everything that they had to do to survive. And she's like, why am I the one kind of getting blamed for it? It was literally your idea. And Abby's like, yeah, you're right, it was. But the thing is, at the very least, I'm remorseful about it. You seem like you don't care. Like, the only reason why you're upset in all of this is because you lost. That's the only thing you regret. But Octavia ends up bringing up something I think is kind of interesting from a psychological point of view, like, or rather just her whole mindset. She became the Red Queen. She became who she needed to be in that instance. And she had a goal in her mind, and that was getting to the valley. It's like, if it wasn't for Kane's betrayal, and if it wasn't for you and Clarke healing Dioza's people, we could have easily taken that. Dioza would have surrendered. I could have stayed in charge and everything. But we could have all cleared ourselves of our sins by having them all washed away if we had taken that valley. And that's what bothers Octavia the most, is because now she has to 100% live with everything that she did. Like, if everything she did led to them having the valley, that they were able to kind of start fresh, then it would have been all for something. But now it's all for nothing, because everything she did was for nothing. She put all those people that were sacrificed, all the blood that was shed, all that pain, all of it was for nothing, and, she became who she needed to be, and now it's like she's stuck with that, to the point she's like starting stuff with Jordan being like, oh, your dad, Monty, he was a coward. The fact of the matter is, he didn't save us, I did. It's like, oh, you all are cowards, you don't want to do anything now, because she's trying to provoke people, because she wants them to beat her up and outright kill her. But Abby stops them and is like, let her live with what she did. She's like, come on, do it. And she's crying and breaking down because now, like, the Red Queen, there is no place for her, and now it's like she has to literally live with everything that she did. Like, before, she could have been like, it was all for a reason, but now it's like, now that they can never go back to Earth, it's like, it was all for nothing. Like, so many was sacrificed. I did so much terrible stuff, and I try to justify it for it to all not matter in the end, and that's kind of a heavy weight to carry, and to see her kind of break down like that, especially because she's been like the Red Queen for so long, of being, trying to be, in control, the whole One Crew thing, to kind of have that all kind of crumble, because that was her identity for so long. That's what she held on to, and to kind of have that kind of stripped away from her, it's sad. I mean, later on you see her kind of piecing herself back together and being like, no, I'm going to take charge. Yeah, I'm going to go save my brother. That in itself led to an interesting thing of like, okay, so once again, she's still in that process of still trying to repair her relationship with Bellamy, which that's still in an awkward place too, because even Bellamy is like, what is she doing here? So that's the whole conversation he had with Echo about like whether or not he could ever forgive his sister for everything that she's done. So, but kind of tying that all in with what's happening with the people that snuck on board, luckily they woke Maddie up too, and that whole situation got dispatched the way it did. Sadly, Raven also finds out about Shaw and all of this. But that is the biggest thing kind of walking away from this situation is, why are there Nightbloods? Like, you can understand Nightbloods, but it seemed like Nightbloods was still like a fairly recent thing. Like, it seemed like that started with Rebecca, so does that mean it existed even back then, or was something introduced to make them Nightbloods? Like, what is that all about? Because obviously there's ties to everything, because obviously this all goes back to all that time ago. Well, because I think what I'm kind of forgetting in my head is like, right, that's 236 years from now, after they're already over a century between season 5, that took place in season 5's finale. I forgot about that. So that probably would have been roughly probably around the time of Becca, probably beforehand, or So whatever it was, maybe they took it with them, whatever it is that makes them black bloods, night bloods. Maybe whatever makes them that, they took it with them. So what Becca basically did on Earth with, maybe that same principle was applied in this regard. But what's interesting is obviously when they show up, which there's obviously some interesting stuff too. It's like, oh, what about these insects that you warned us about? It's like, they most likely got eaten by the trees, like your friends. It's like, we're quickly just going to go over that. Like, oh, there are trees eating people. We're just going to completely ignore that. Okay. Like, I was like, that's when I was like, did she say what I think she said? So there's that. But then, like, when it's all said and done, like, the kids are returning, and it's like, which is interesting because it's a whole bunch of kids. They're not adults. They're all kids. And they're there, and they see the lady handcuffed because she's the only one left alive. I'm wondering, is that simple? Because one of the people, it's like, oh, it's the husband. So I'm wondering, is it like a husband and two other children, or what that whole dynamic was with everybody? But nevertheless, so there's the complicated thing there. But then, like, she says the line of like, "Are you going to take us back home?" And you have Clarke being like, "Isn't this your home?" Which we know, like, some of the team took place, like obviously different people went to different places. Obviously one of those places was here on Alpha, which Raven and Jordan realized like, oh, Alpha isn't a planet, it's a moon. So does that mean that everyone else is actually on the actual planet, and that Alpha is actually more of like a prison or something? You know, but then why are the kids there? Maybe it's because they're also night blood, so maybe them being night bloods, they got sent there for something. Maybe it's meant to be some place of like, oh, like they're meant to be sent there to be trained and prepared for something to survive the actual planet. I have no idea. What's also interesting is like something's going on with Murphy now too. Like I said, whatever it was that might have gotten in his system before that prevented him from being affected by the toxins at the very least, maybe that's now finally affecting him. What that exactly entails, I have no idea. I am very interested to kind of figure this whole situation out. Like I said, like, I mean, to be fair, this is the only place they've come across, but it's like, is this all that's on Alpha? Is this community of this lady and the three others that were with her and all these other kids? Once again, why are they kids? Are they newly born embryos? Is this where they come to the planet to give birth to these embryos? Or because like because they're not all the same age either. They're different ages. So I'm like, I don't know. Maybe next episode will kind of make things a little clearer for us. But I'm very interested to see what that ends up all being about. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.